This is Fritz Frivolous with continuous live coverage of the corner of Curious Lane and Just Because Boulevard, the epicenter of the alien invasion. And this just in, King Kong is fighting the Mobile Suit Gundam. And of course, all of this is happening amidst World War IV, making it pure pandemonium. If only Captain Planet were still alive to save us all. Dude, could you imagine? You're listening to the radio. You hear the jingle from a fast food commercial, and now you're craving a burger from your favorite burger joint. While driving on a road trip, you decide to listen to some CDs of your favorite band. Now the trip doesn't seem so long. You hear a certain beat. Your foot starts tapping. Suddenly, you're dancing. Music influences many facets of your life, sometimes in ways you're not even aware of. But what if music had never been created? What if music had never existed at all? Let us listen in on Will and Tom, our two mind-blowing maestros, as they contemplate a musicless world. Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Case.
I'm Will Stark.
Will, I think I have a real interesting one here.
Okay.
Because I know that in your lifetime, you're heavily influenced by this.
Oh, am I now? Okay.
So the more and more I thought about this question, I was like, you know what? You probably will have a lot to say about this. What if music never existed?
What? Okay. What if music never existed?
I think
that's tough.
Because
I don't even know where to begin on this one.
You know, I don't want to say the phrase like take for granted, but you know, a lot of people.
No, I think that's fair. I think most people do take music for granted.
Yeah, maybe they do. Maybe they do. It's because you don't realize how much it influences you. Mm-hmm. Even to someone like me, who, you know, I'm not. Like, I'm not the type of person who goes like, oh, I love this band. Let me go find out everything about them. Let me go buy all their albums or let me go to all their concerts. I've never been like that.
It's not a defining, like, lifestyle characteristic of yours.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, some people it is and some people's not.
Yeah, but, you know, music does influence me and it has influences in my life.
I would imagine it's hard for music not to influence pretty much anyone living in the modern world. I mean, it permeates every source of entertainment that we have, whether it's actually listening to the radio, playing video games, watching a movie, watching a show, you know, even going to the store is an experience that involves music because of the music they play over the intercom. There is an entire science behind, like a psychological science behind, like the types of songs they play at the supermarket to keep you there longer. And my God, does it work? Because every time I go to the supermarket, I'm like, I love this song.
You know what? You hit something right on you hit the nail right on the head. Actually, let's go to some of these Fritz facts here.
Oh, we got some Fritz facts.
Oh, I got some Fritz facts.
Okay.
Actually, one of them, I just want to say this because I thought it was such an odd fact. But I guess in 2016, Mozart sold more CDs than Beyonce.
In 2016, wow.
In 2016, right? You know,
I wonder what caused the surge in Mozart.
But I was actually happy to hear that you know, like such a, you know, a time tested classic of music.
That's one thing to call Mozart.
Yeah, you know, I mean, well, he was a genius.
Sure, absolutely.
But, you know, obviously, you know, how many hundreds of years, you know, back was that? Or
I don't actually know the timeline of Mozart's life, but yes, we're talking on the scale of centuries, at least, since, you know, he was alive.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, thinking about, like, if music didn't exist, I think our concept of celebrity would be very, very different. You bring up Mozart is even understates what I was going to say even more, because I was thinking more along the lines of, like, the 20th century and how the rise of the superstar kind of, if as far as I could tell through my own knowledge, seems to have really risen with music over the radio. You know, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, the Beatles, on and on and on, before TV really got its hold on the American public. You know, when people could have a TV in their living room.
Yeah, because radios and stuff like that
was still working. It's
more readily available to the public.
Yeah, but before, like, the 1920s, there weren't as many, like, superstars. As a matter of fact, I don't think there'd be anything even close to equivalent of what we would call a superstar today. But I just feel like the idea of the super celebrity, the rock star, it starts with music.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's definitely...
If you go back to Mozart and, you know, all the ancient classical musicians that like are renowned to this day, they were superstars in their own time. There's something about music that's able to bridge across cultures and bridge across language barriers and all that other stuff.
Yeah, you do bring up an interesting point. Like, you're right. Back in his day, like, he would be the rock star. You know what I mean? He would
was. From my understanding, Mozart was quite the rock star.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He was that in his time.
Right.
And you got to remember back then, you know, like, the proliferation of music wasn't widely spread without, you know, the technology that we have now.
Yeah.
You know, because now someone can make something on TikTok and get, you know, 1 million views if people like it enough or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, back then, you know, it was very slow moving. Usually these people who, you know, were becoming famous for their music, it was kind of localized because, like, you know, their music may not have spread as far. But then, of course, you had more of the technology of them being able to record, you know, like on vinyl and all that being sent out to like other parts of the world, and then other people start to listen to his music.
Exactly. There's a level of connection there. Now, thinking about this question makes me think of essentially a different question, because like if we live in a world where humans never made music, that means that like we would be a very fundamentally different kind of creature.
We would definitely be,
because we wouldn't be the creatures that made music. So like one of the theories surrounding around like music and like why certain music becomes like universally loved or like more quickly loved, like pop music. Like, what makes pop music so catchy? And why do we like music in general? It comes down to pattern recognition.
Yes.
Like, the ability to recognize a pattern and then be able to predict said pattern before it happens. It's very pleasing to the human mind. And not just in music, but also in sight and other things like that. Or even in story beats. There's been studies that show that like human beings actually enjoy stories more when they already know the ending before they see it. Yeah. Which is contrary to how we feel about spoilers in the common day and age. But anyways, I digress.
Well, but I see your point though, because a lot of music, you know, it repeats itself. It has a rhythm. So people already are expecting when they hear one part of the song, oh, I kind of can figure out what the rest of the song is
right.
Like.
Or even like as music gets more complex, as you delve deeper into genres and explore more, or if you are a musician yourself, you learn to see like the different rules that are being followed between, you know, the different modes and the different keys and all the other stuff. And you begin to predict patterns that are way more complicated than what your average listener is, but it's still just as pleasing, if not more so, because you're more invested into like the craft itself.
Because you created it.
Right.
Yeah.
And humans have always been very pattern recognition focused. The type of people that wouldn't develop music, to me, that says that they're not pattern recognition focused. And if they're not pattern recognition focused, they're probably not highly intelligent, because that's kind of a telltale mark of a highly intelligent species. I would say that if humans had never invented music, we'd probably still be stuck in the Stone Age or previous to that, because we wouldn't be the type of creature that latches on to pattern recognition.
See, I was actually going to bring that up and ask this too later on in this conversation, but you brought it up now. I was going to say, so do you feel like there is, like, let's say people who, you know, let's say someone who's really good at mathematics, right? Or, you know, are highly intelligent. Because usually you are you're able to recognize patterns quickly. That's what makes you seem more intelligent. And same thing with numbers. And so do you think there's a correlation between, like, you know, people who, let's say, create music and then people who also, you know, let's say are, you know, really good with numbers and stuff like that?
I'm sure there is some sort of correlation. I doubt it's a very strong one. The thing about pattern recognition is there's a million types of it.
Yeah, that's true.
But generally speaking, pattern recognition, having a high ability to do so, usually indicates a high ability to critically think and thus problem solve. You can see the pieces of the puzzle, thus you can put it together. Yeah. So yeah, I guess, if music had never been invented, it means that we wouldn't be the Homo sapiens that we are today. We would have been something... we would have been people unable to progress. That's just my opinion.
Well, no. That's wrong. Well, but hey, you know, there's really no wrong answers here.
I think if we weren't capable of the pattern recognition of like basic rhythms, like how would we move on to stories and orating and and all the tool making and all the problem solving that requires you to see patterns and then solve those patterns. You know what I mean? Like,
that would be an interesting, I mean, I don't know how you would be able to create this type of experiment, but that would be something interesting, is to, if you were able to, I don't know, have someone grow up and not expose them to any kind of music at all. What I mean? How would that person grow up? There were certain things that I already knew when I was thinking about these questions that would be gone, right? Like there wouldn't be dancing, or would there? Would there be some sort of, because why did people start dancing? You know what I mean? Right. I would think was because of the rhythmic beats of music, right?
Right.
And if I were to guess, I could be wrong about this, but if I were to guess, like, what's the oldest form of like artistic form, it would either have to be the drawing and or the rhythmic beat, right? Which would then spawn music.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's one of those things. Well, if one didn't happen first or the other, would the other still work? Would the other still happen?
I don't know if dancing works without music, but I am very much not a dancer. And for a person who is a musician and can make music, I'm completely incapable of dancing. And it's not through lack of trying. I do not have an internal rhythm that makes my body move in such a way.
I'm
also a very clumsy, like exceptionally clumsy person. So that might be part of it.
I don't think I'm a good dancer, but I do like to dance.
I could picture you dancing.
And I feel like, man, if I just got in a little bit better shape, I could probably dance even better. But
I mean,
that works for us all. It's something that I always thought, like, man, if there was no music, though, would there, because dancing could be considered an art form. You know what I mean? An art form, it is an art form. And like, but if no music happened, would that
I don't think dancing would have developed. I am curious, and I mean, I suppose we could Google it. Are there any cultures that we know of historically that never ended up developing music? I doubt there is one.
Yeah, I would highly doubt that.
Like, maybe it's possible, maybe. I don't think so, though. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's just our Western point of view. Like, music is so... we're so steeped in music. It permeates every entertainment form we have. Like, so an idea of a world without music is utterly bizarre.
Yeah, you almost can't even fathom it.
I wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
to us, it's just the force of nature that's always been there. Music, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're born, there's already music. But that brings an interesting fact then of maybe when music could, I don't know if you can even consider it or call it being invented, right? Mm-hmm. It would have already had to come from our brain being able to recognize patterns. So someone, who knows, maybe the Neanderthals back in the day or whatever, had to have been making sounds and recognized, if I repeat the sounds, it does something to me. It makes me feel a certain way. Right. You know what I mean? Which actually brings me back to some of the... I know I said I was going to go into the Fitz facts here, but...
Oh, yeah.
Actually, when you first said about going like to the store and you hear music and it's designed to like keep you there.
Oh yeah.
Actually, a lot of companies invest a lot of money and time to basically use music to kind of put your brain in a, I guess,
a nostalgic state.
Yeah, in a state where you want to buy, right? And
that's interesting.
I mean, every company, like almost any big company, Starbucks,
what does that mean?
Apple,
what does
McDonald's.
A state where you want to buy, what does that mean?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know exactly what that means, but they say, like, a lot of them, they use the music to mold our brains, not only into getting into that state, but they want you to identify like jingles, right? Especially jingles. Those are like probably the most recognizable,
patterns.
3 to 10 second clips of music that people recognize. If I want da 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 da, you know what I'm talking about, right?
What you're talking about.
And so we
just got sued by McDonald's.
Yeah, I know, right? The cease and desist. Right? Hey, that's free advertising for you, McDonald's.
They don't need it.
Go eat a burger.
but you would recognize that. So they have people focused on jingles. They want them to correlate a jingle with a brand. That makes sense. It's almost like a Pavlovian response. If like you hear a thing, it reminds you of the reward, which is a tasty Big Mac, I guess, in this case. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Oh yeah, no. But you're right. I was just gonna say, like, you brought up one of the major ways that music influences us today in our lives. They a lot of times when they're doing that too with music, they want recall. You know what I mean? Right. You hear that somewhere. You may not even hear the whole commercial, but you hear the jingle and you're like, oh, you know what? I want McDonald's tonight.
Brand
whatever
recognition.
It was. Yeah, exactly.
So that's understandable. I was thinking more along the lines while you're in the store, like the only thing I could think of like putting your brain in a mode where it's more willing to buy is if you're pulling on the nostalgia strings, which, you know, it gets us emotional, makes us feel warm and cozy and good. And kind of that, if you ask me, I would imagine that would lower the inhibitions of like, you know, saving your money and being like, oh no, like exactly. I want this and I want that, you know, oh, it feels good. This whole place feels good.
Because everyone wants to chase something that they've wanted from their past or something that makes them feel good.
I mean, you should see me with Pokemon cards, man. It's crazy.
Exactly.
So yeah, I can see that. But I mean, I'm not sure if that's exactly what's putting people in buy mode. But I mean, when I go to the store, I hear a lot of music from my childhood to teenage years. And they're usually really good about picking the hits that were hits, but they weren't the ones that were played to death, and they're not the ones that like annoy you after you've heard them for too long. Yeah. So I'm not sure what the science behind the songs they pick is, but it is immaculate.
You know what I've noticed though for myself, and I don't know if this was designed for it, but when I go to places like Frank and Sons, which is like, you know, it's like a swap meet for like collectibles.
It's a super mega gaming store.
Yeah, exactly.
That's only open 2 days a week that everyone in the area where we live knows about. That's a nerd. So
and not every time I go there, but sometimes when I go there, you know what I noticed is if I'm going to like a store that's selling collectibles, right? Maybe from like Marvel and DC Comics, and they have like these sculptures that, you know, I know cost a lot of money and are out of my budget, but they always have like the movie of something in the background, like Batman Begins or Superman Returns or whatever it is. And then I hear that music, man, I am ready to buy something.
Really?
I feel like when I hear that music, I'm just like, that is so bad. Oh, look at that sculpture. And then seeing the sculpture with the music in the background makes it that much more awesome. And I'm like, I'm buying it.
Sensory, what's experience. That's interesting.
And that experience
it makes a lot of sense.
It
does make a lot of sense.
It's sometimes it overrides my, you know, need to be frugal at the moment and know that I have to save my money.
You know, it does make sense. This is why people love Disneyland so much.
Because it really Disney's is probably the master
assault on your nostalgia. It's just pushing that nostalgia button. You get the music and you know, obviously the effects and the costumes and the rest. Plus, if you're a native Californian, like you went here when you were a kid, so it's like triple nostalgia.
Well, not only that, plus imagine if you have kids and the type of experience that it's giving it to them.
Oh yeah, that
because they don't have that nostalgic part. You know what I mean? Because they're still young.
Honestly, the kids, it comes down to the kids. When parents see their kids having that much fun, like you can't.
How are you gonna
it makes you so happy, and you just want them to be happy, and it's this whole positive feedback. It's disgusting.
Yeah, right. You know they got us on lockdown.
Yeah, they really do. But back to music.
But you know, also too back to some of the facts here. They've actually have music therapy. They say that music can actually help heal the brain.
That's interesting.
They have licensed professionals help people with brain damage, not just the brain, but brain damage, heart problems, or other physical issues. And they use music. And
how does the music help them with? These sound like more physical ailments than like.
Yeah, so like one of the examples they give is like therapists use a style of singing with certain rhythms that can help. Like let's say if your speech, like if you had a stroke, and you know sometimes after a stroke you have problems with speech, right? Because it affected that part of the brain.
Interesting. Yeah,
so some therapists actually have used a style of singing that has certain rhythms in it that help bring back the cadence of speech.
That's interesting. I would be really interested in reading that paper because...
Right? I know.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it sounds plausible, but like... Is the science behind it really sound?
Well, you know, according to Harvard Medical School, which I would say is pretty reputable,
yeah, I mean, I would hope so.
Patients with speech problems are capable of singing words that they cannot speak.
I mean, Ozzy Osbourne's your perfect example of someone who can sing incredibly clearly, even if he has a hard time speaking.
And then, and then you hear him talk, and it's you know, very hard to
speaking, and it's from the many, many drugs he did during life, which is funny because I've always felt like Ozzy's reputation, though in the end, did well because of his lovable personality and his inability to talk. I feel like for a while there, his reputation really suffered. Like, I think people tend to find people who have difficulty speaking, generally they treat them as if they're dumber. But Ozzy is a very intelligent individual, and it's very obvious if you read any of his lyrics. He's an amazing lyricist. And so I remember those years in the early years of the Osbournes when that was like the show and everyone was like laughing at Ozzy.
Show, yeah.
It's a good show.
Yeah.
Especially like I don't like reality TV and even I thought that show was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that being said, I remember when Ozzy was getting like re-popular in the reality TV world, like the persona that people were getting of Ozzy wasn't the one I grew up with. And like to them, he was the bumbling old funny man. I'm like, but that's not Ozzy. He's a musical genius, and you got to put some respect on his name.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're diverging again. Back
well,
to
no. These are interesting, things to talk about. But the other thing I was going to say too is that I thought was really interesting was the right side of the brain processes music while the left side processes language. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people who have problem in their brains to bridging the gap, that's one of the things that it helps. Music helps create new neurological pathways that could also help heal for that part of the brain.
No, I can see that, especially with music with words, because it doesn't get to a better conjoining of those two hemispheres, right? The one hemisphere processes the actual sound of the melody and the harmony and all that other stuff, and the other one handles the language, and you have both with lyrics.
Yeah, exactly. So it would be, and then also music improves memory. Like, and one of the right off the bat, they say like, do you remember when you learned the alphabet? How did you learn the alphabet? Via song, right?
Absolutely.
So. I thought
that's how a lot of children's shows like teach almost anything is like there's usually a sing along for it, and it's incredibly effective.
I also think, and then the next one, the last one that I have for music is obviously it relieves stress. You know what I mean? Because like that's not most, but that's a lot of the things I associate with music is not just relieving stress, but it has to do with like changing my mood. Sometimes if you're not feeling too well or whatever, I'll pop in like something from the Beatles, especially like their older stuff, sure. It's more poppy, it's more like upbeat.
I think when that happens, we're hitting the nostalgia button. It's making you feel warm and fuzzy. Mm-hmm. But it's funny, we just had this entire conversation about music, and we didn't really talk about like the emotional side of the craft. And in a lot of ways, like music developed because of how it made us feel when it came to like pattern recognition. But it very quickly changed into something much, much more profound, and it has to do with like human connection. Yeah. So like people who make music, they tend to make music for the purpose of manipulating other people's emotions. Usually it's so that you can get someone to feel the way you feel about a certain thing, whatever it is you're singing about. Or at least you can evoke an emotion that could resonate with others. It's about human connection. Mm-hmm. Or in the case of like dancing, it's like a way for everyone to have a festive feeling together. Yeah. So it's about togetherness. It's
a
about
festive
connection.
Interaction.
Yeah. That paired with the pattern recognition, and basically you have the perfect recipe for making humans happy.
Yeah. That's why I feel if music never existed, we would probably be living in a world of people who are highly stressed.
We already do.
And, it'll be people who probably are... I don't know why I would think they would be a little bit more on the logical side and not as connected with each other.
See, I just don't... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I just have a feeling that, it would be more...
I think it feels that way, but I actually think the opposite. Go ahead.
Do you think they would be more connected?
No. Well, it's not so much the connection part. It's I don't think that this group of people would be logical.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because, again, we go back to the intelligence factor. Yeah. And it is so intrinsic to being human and being of a higher intelligence species that I just don't think we'd be human anymore. We'd be something else. And I think we would be less connected. We'd probably be less tribal.
Okay, so logical, I think I probably misspoke with that word. Yeah, it would be more, I was trying to say more of like people would be kind of more, I don't know what's that word, like cold, clinical. Yeah, you know what I mean, like pragmatic not as not as connected.
I could see that for sure. This raises another question. Again, because I do not know, I would be very curious to see what other higher intelligent life forms, how they react to music.
That would be very
Yeah,
interesting.
like how do dolphins and whales react to different music as a rhythm? I know whales have a language that is to our ears very musical.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's musical to them exactly. And I know dolphins have like a very rhythmic kind of clicky language. True. But again, I know basically nothing about both of these things.
That's why I ask you these questions, Will. You're supposed to know all the answers.
But like, what about the higher primates? Like, do chimps and gorillas and orangutans, like, do they react to music in specific ways? Like,
there was a famous gorilla named Coco, I believe, and they taught Coco sign language, right? A form of sign language.
Right, yes.
And I think I remember seeing a video where she was reacting to someone who was playing music, and I mean, she seemed to enjoy it. I think she even asked for like, "What is this?" or more of this, something like that. But yeah, you know what? That raises an interesting question.
Yeah. One last fun fact that I do know is some of the creatures on Earth with the best problem-solving skills in the world are birds, and they produce music naturally.
Oh, that is true.
So,
true.
Yeah.
Dude, could you imagine?
Breaking news, a new study suggests leaving an iTunes review is very important for newly created podcasts. So to nurture your new favorite podcast, make sure to leave an iTunes review. This has been Fritz Frivolous, reminding you to like, comment, and subscribe. Will and Tom, back to you. Have you ever had a dream that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world? What is real? How do you define real? If real is what you can feel, smell, taste, and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. Tonight, we will hear from two children of Zion, Will and Tom, as they unplug from the Matrix and try to answer the question, are we living in a simulation?
And we're back.
Indeed.
So, this one, I had a thought about this after watching a certain movie. If I name the movie, it's going to ruin the question. You'll already know.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
But if I were to tell you that we already had this conversation, right, and that this conversation has been going on a lot of times. And each time it had a different outcome, but, they're ultimately trying to get a certain outcome out of this, which is, what if we are living in a simulation?
Okay. I thought we were talking about Matrix 2.
Yeah, that's what I knew if I just said, I just watched The Matrix, you're already going to know, like, oh, you're talking about simulation.
I figured it out before you asked the question. So, okay, what if we are in a simulation? From my understanding, it's becoming increasingly likely that we are, or at least I believe it said that the closer we get to being able to make a universal simulation of our own, the more we realize it is increasingly likely that we are ourselves in a simulation now.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, in relative to, to other theories in science and stuff, they call this simulation theory.
Right.
And it's relatively new,
It is,
in the whole
the concept of a
things.
simulation could not have probably been conceived of like more than like 80 years ago, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, they actually do think, like back in the day, like, even some of the philosophers, like, kind of would touch on simulation, but to them it wasn't simulation, but they would talk about, what if our dreams was the real world, and when we're, you know what I mean? Things like that, which,
They're adjacent.
Yeah,
They're
like you could look at that and be like, okay, he was saying something similar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just they didn't have that technology back then to know
there'd be
about
no way to
simulations.
really conceive of it unless you were like some super mega genius. My question to your question is, if we were, what does it matter? Like, is there truly a difference between if this was a simulation versus if it wasn't?
I mean, you know what? To be honest with you, the only time it would matter is if you knew the actual truth. Then to me, I could not, just like in the Matrix, like, if we are being harvested by these, machines who are using our body heat and everything.
That's a very specific.
But
if this was the Matrix, that is a very different question than that. Are we living in a simulation?
Yeah.
Because yes, if I too found out that we were for some strange reason being harvested for battery power, even though it's a very inefficient way to gain energy, and why didn't you just build spaceships with solar panels on it and start collecting it via satellite or something?
Because it's not as fun.
or just pick a different animal that can probably make you more energy than us. But anyways, if I too found out that this illogical premise was true, I would be very upset and very, very interested in getting the fuck out of it.
Well, see, but to me, it doesn't matter if that was it or not. It could be that I'm just hooked up in, some machine and they're not harvesting my body heat for energy or whatever. I still, now that I know what the truth is, it would bother me too much to be stuck in a simulation, knowing the life I'm living is the simulation and I'm actually out there, whatever, for whatever reason. Else. Yeah. For example, it would bother, that would be the only time that it would matter to me.
Okay. So for you, it's almost the principle of the fact
that it's not the truth for me. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, truth is relative, but here's the question. What if, I'm imagining in the scenario that you are getting the full gist of the situation of the simulation. So what if the simulation was something you willingly had put yourself through, even though you don't actually remember that?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
If I willing... Okay, see, this is what I wanted to bring up. So, I don't know if I'm going to call these Fritz facts or not, but, so... There's actually different movies. Like I said, this question was, when I was watching The Matrix, it made me, think about that. So in The Matrix, that's one movie. That's one way of they're talking about the simulation is where, these
robots have a really bad idea.
Yeah, and they
go through with it anyway.
Yeah, and they capture you. Yeah, they capture you. Exactly. And they're taking, energy from your body or whatever, right? Yeah. But then there's a simulation like The Truman Show. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I've never seen it. I do understand the premise.
Yeah, so it's a good movie, and that one is more of where it's not a computer simulation. It's everyone's faking and for one person for the purpose of entertainment. You know what I mean?
That's a lot different in that in that simulation, the universe is a joke and you're the butt of it, but you just don't know it until you do, and then you realize this universe is horrifying and I've been lied to.
Yeah, that's a different. Yeah, that's another type of a simulation. But what you just brought up, there was this movie called Existence, right? They spell it.
I already hate this movie.
Yeah, I don't like the name of this movie, and I don't like the way they spell it. They spell it lowercase e, capital X. Then all lowercase ISTEN, and then capital Z.
What's the rating on IMDb?
I don't know, but you know what? I am so glad that it came out in 1999, because guess what else came out in 1999?
The Matrix?
Yes, and it overshadowed this movie, so nobody, you know what I mean? Because, no, I would have been dang, no way.
Yeah.
But, see, that's the one where it has that's the one, that's the one that it has what you were talking about, where if you purposely went in and put yourself into a simulation and then got confused, or either, because in this movie what happens is, it's like a VR video game, right? And a company comes out with one called Existence, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's supposed to simulate real life.
Yeah.
But you have a different life than your own, obviously, Yes. But then what happens is the people who use it, or, the main character here uses it and starts getting confused on what's real or what's actually in the simulation.
Sure. I could see different psychotic phenomenon like that happening. Yeah.
Now, you were asking me would it make a difference if I put myself in there? You know what? I think it would, because if I know that I put myself in there, though, it would be more enjoyable than if I didn't put myself in a simulation and then found out I'm in one. You know what I mean? That would bother me, because I would just I'm just too curious, and I'm just too, I have to know. I'm just too curious. I have to know why.
So in the end, you're not really trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're not trusting the person who put you in there, even though you did it according to your own free will.
No. If I was put in the simulation, like the Matrix style, where I didn't know, I just thought that this was my life, and then I found out, oh wait, this is a simulation, and I didn't put myself in this.
Curious.
Oh, I'd be too curious.
No. Well, I'm sorry. Did you answer the question about you going into the simulation of your free will? Like, would you still want to escape?
No.
Oh,
so if I was, if I was in the free will, it would be different because if I put myself in there, then I would be so happy to be in the simulation because I would know, hopefully I would know what I'm putting myself into.
I'm going to go off the beaten trail here for a minute. Like, have you ever heard of a thing called Fermi Paradox?
Mm-mm.
So the Fermi Paradox is essentially, how do I put this? It is the theory behind why we haven't found extraterrestrial life yet. Mm-hmm. The idea being that there is some unknown barrier between our current level of civilization and the level of civilization required for interstellar travel. Also, that there may even be a barrier between like the type of civilization 4,000 years ago and where we are now. There are many theories behind like why we're not receiving signals from anywhere else or why we're not finding life out there. There's a lot of them, but one in particular is pertinent to what we're talking about. And it is the theory of simulation technology, where a society that reaches a certain level of technological advancement becomes capable of creating near perfect or perfect simulations. And thus the society itself stagnates because so many members of the society choose to live within their own paradise simulation rather than continue existing in their own world and advancing society and technology alongside it. Like, we reach a ceiling because no one desires to go beyond it anymore. Because why would you? You could create your own dream world, any dream world, 1,000 dream worlds.
Yeah. Everything
that you could possibly want to experience or try is literally at your fingertips.
Yeah, that's true.
And there is, a less than 0% chance or a more than 0% chance, or how am I trying to say what I'm trying to say? There is a non-zero chance that this is a real thing, because imagine if human beings get the ability to create like universal simulations that they can experience. Mm-hmm. I don't think we ever get off this rock, personally. I just don't think we'll ever make it.
There would be.
There's no way.
Because why would you want to risk at trying to travel or
right? It's just too tempting.
Yeah,
it's too tempting. Like, even to someone who may see that as a horrifying fate, I think it's even too tempting to someone who feels that way.
Yeah,
because it's essentially like ultimate power with no ethical repercussions.
Yeah, that is true. I got to admit, obviously the type of technology that it would take to simulate all that we don't have yet.
No,
but but even the very, very small, PlayStation VR, right? Mm-hmm. When I was playing the Resident Evil 7, my God, no, you're right, because I know I'm safe.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's no danger. You know what I mean, but you feel like you're in this house. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And if I were to even be able to experience, a fraction or even the same thing, but more of that by let's go to, Mars or I don't know, wherever, somewhere that obviously you can't go. Mm-hmm. You're right. If I could already experience it, why go and risk the chance of your shuttle blowing up while you're, traveling through space?
Exactly. Another thing too is with this theoretical level of technology, a form of pseudo immortality can exist, because so much of our perception of time is exactly that. It's just a perception. And think about in your dreams, when we dream, I'm sure you, like most people who are listening to this, have probably at some point had a dream where you feel like you experience weeks or months of time in that dream, but you wake up and it's only been an hour.
Yeah.
If we can capture that experience in a simulation, you could live 1,000 lifetimes, more, 1,000,000 lifetimes in one life via simulation.
Yeah.
There's your immortality right there. It's not really immortality because your physical body still has the limit, but your mental experience is expanded way, way beyond that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that would be something that's definitely if you went into this VR experience the whole lifetime, of living 70 years, and you wake and you come out of whatever this machine and your hour's up, you know what I mean? That'll be 39 credits, you know what I mean?
Right.
You're right. That would be
I mean, all it would take is enough nuclear reactors to... I mean, here's the thing. If this level of technology happens, like, that's it for us. Like, that's it for our ability to leave this rock, and it's probably it for, like, the progeneration of the species. Unless we actively take steps to make sure, like, more of us are being made.
Yeah.
I think as long as, like, if we're able to, like, crack, I don't know, nuclear fission... or nuclear fission, let's just say that. If we crack nuclear fission or renewables to an efficient degree where we could keep whole servers running and keep everything functioning and the AI robots making sure everything's rolling through, like, this is how we go extinct. Like, I firmly believe if we invent this level of technology, that's it. It's over.
Yeah, because, you know, especially if that kind of technology starts to get into hands of, like, children who... you know, they don't even get to experience what they could have been in their actual life. They're just going to experience everything. They're going to buy, hey, Mom, I want to, you know, buy me the Fireman VR experience. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. That's how it starts. I'm just talking about the moment, the moment where we cross over into everyone goes in and no one comes out will happen.
Yeah, that's kind of a scary thought now.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I'm pretty sure that this level of tech is possible, which is why I think it's increasingly likely that we, right now, speaking on this podcast, very well could be in a simulation.
That is really weird. You just freaked me out, Will.
I'm sorry.
You know what? It's funny, though. I want to bring this up because you were talking about, like, things with dreams and stuff, right?
Sure.
So, it's funny that they included the film Inception in this simulation list,
right? Because the dream becomes a simulation,
yeah, right? Sure. And yeah, once I started reading through, I was like, okay, that makes sense.
And they talk about the time dilation in that too, because the further
further it goes, the slower,
the more time stretches.
Time stretches more.
Yeah.
But what I thought was really interesting was what he's trying to do in that movie is plant a thought, right? And that would be scary. Like if that, you know what I mean? If, like,
it would work too.
And I would think that, unfortunately, in the future when more VR things start coming out, for quote unquote entertainment purposes, that they're going to try to put, just like what commercials do subliminally, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to do that. It's going to technically plant a thought in your head, and it's probably going to be buy more PlayStation games or whatever it is, that they may put in there. But I mean, that is a very real danger. That the only way we will circumvent things like that is with legislation. What's the word? Proactive legislation. Yeah, right. That probably won't happen until damage has already been done. It would be way too late
for humans work. So but yeah, I mean, what are the chances? What do you think the chances are that we right now are in a simulation?
You know what? I honestly, now after like this conversation, I feel like there could be almost a 50-50 chance that we are in a simulation. But I feel like the type of simulation that we are in is more of a, physical-based simulation where we may be introduced to certain stimuli, almost like mice in a maze. A mouse in a maze.
It's a live laboratory.
Yeah, like that type of thing. And I feel like, and I don't know if they do exist. And this, like I said, this is just a theory of mine. If this were true, I feel like that's the more likely scenario, is that we are kind of almost like an experiment to another highly intelligent life form.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's distinctly likely, but I mean, when it comes to the idea of this being a simulation, that seems relatively likely. Like, what would we do if we were able to create like a live simulated universe in a bubble?
Yeah.
Well, number one, we would do it, and then we would watch.
Yeah.
And we would have probably more than just one. We would probably have hundreds. Some we would leave alone as controls.
Yeah.
And others we would introduce to different stimuli to see what the fuck happens.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't we? Like, until like we really start to tackle the ethics of it, like maybe there will be protesters against it, but that's even if they're even told about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like the public may not even ever know until it's already, we have 100 years of data on that.
You think they really are protesting? Those could be the stimuli that they're introducing to us to see how we would react.
I mean, yeah, sure, but so yeah, it's distinctly possible that like that's the kind of simulation we're in. I tend to lean towards more like if we are in a simulation, it's probably this weird eternal VR system. But,
wow, that would be which all in all, I'll be honest with you. I still want to get a PS5 and play PlayStation VR. Like I'll get stuck in that world,
VR is definitely the future of gaming. That's for sure. Like I have no doubt. After some of the stuff I've seen VR like capable of, and that's now in like the Wild West of the tech, like it's going to get crazy.
Yeah, definitely. But dude, could you imagine?
And that is all we have for you tonight. We will continue to bring you up-to-date coverage as new imaginings develop. Please don't forget to leave an iTunes review, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Remember, you can follow us on YouTube and on Twitter at DCYImagine. And if you would like to contact us or tell us what you are imagining, you can email us at dudecouldyouimagine@gmail.com. This has been Fritz Frivolous, and from all of us here at Dude Could You Imagine, keep on imagining.
I'll hear the question, and my initial reaction is like, "Fuck, I don't know."
You did that on this one too.
I did.
You did.
Then,
I was like, you were like, "Oh, why the fuck?" You're
I'm like, "What?"
I know.